YouTube, welcome to the video. Today we'll be watching Yuji versus Maki Isn't Fair. Uh, I'm not a read the manga type of guy, I'd rather watch the anime, I'd rather watch the actual show. But that's just my preference, you know what I'm saying? I don't like to know what's gonna happen. But, JJK, I need that show to come out right now. I need it. Now.
Yuji and Maki were the demonic duo in Jujutsu Kaisen. Despite teaming up literally only
Okay.
one time in the entire series, everyone acknowledges that once they did, we were in for a treat. What if these two were to come to blows? And in today's video, let's talk about exactly that. What's up guys, Gambler here, and in today's video, we'll be going over Yuji versus Maki.
Okay.
Is it even fair? Is it close? How does this impact Hikari's legacy? All of these questions will be answered in this video, so stay tuned. If you enjoy videos like these, go ahead and subscribe.
Subscribe to me. My nose burn.
Yuji is our MC, so of course we have to pay our respects to him by going over his stats first. Starting off his strength, this video is kind of funny in retrospect because for the first 150 chapters of the manga, Yuji was constantly stated to be stronger than Maki. Yuji's first appearance in the story was Megumi literally comparing him to Maki, and Yuji had no clue about curse energy. At the beginning of Goodwill, Megumi just casually blurts out that if Yuji fought everyone in Kyoto School and Tokyo School combined without curse energy, Yuji would win. Then during his fight with Eso and Keisuzu, the narrator itself tells us that Yuji was just superior to Maki without curse energy, and on top of that was
Oh man, why is Maki getting these strays?
because his base regular body was just so strong, it surpassed a heavenly restriction who wasn't fully awakened. We'll of course see this get put to use in magnificent fashion, so let's go over it right now. Throughout the Shinjuku arc, Yuji's impact on the fight varied drastically. No matter what, Yuji had a power that was absolutely vital to defeating Sukuna. Yuji being able to directly attack the barrier between Megumi and Sukuna's soul was a power literally no one else had, not even the characters who could perceive souls like Gojo and Maki. Yuji's first hit on Sukuna with his new power shook him, and he automatically noticed the role of Yuji during the fight. Of course, despite this, he didn't really take him seriously, dismissing him for Higuruma as soon as he got the chance to. Yuji had 3 levels of this new power: base punches, black flashes, and shrine. They obviously rank exactly like that in efficiency, but this doesn't mean that Yuji's base punches were inefficient or weak. In chapter 256, Sukuna hits 3 black flashes in a row, and as soon as Yuji punches Sukuna, Choso says in his mind that no matter the effect of Sukuna's black flashes, the punches will revert those effects. This meant if being charitable to Yuji, each punch from him worked like a reverse black flash. To go with what's actually said in the story, Yuji separating Sukuna and Megumi's soul lowers Sukuna's control over the body and
Oh,
just
got
like how
you.
Yuji told him in Mahito,
This is you. Wait, no, this is you. And you want to conquer the world?
Sorry about that, guys.
all got locked in after hitting one, it's like the opposite effect for Sukuna. In Yuta's domain, the duo couldn't work like no other. Yuta and Rika would set up attacks for Yuji to whittle down Sukuna's connection to Megumi. In the domain, Yuji hit Sukuna 9 times, and the 9 attacks were so drastic to Sukuna's control over his body. Sukuna not only acknowledges it in his own mind, but also the narrator literally told us he had to make a desperate gamble to fire off a cutting slash. Heck, Yuji even gets to talk directly with Megumi because it was a text. This of course gets amplified by black flashes. When Yuji decided he just wanted to black flash Sukuna to oblivion, Sukuna pissed off as if Yuji's trying to climb up to his level. This came after the narrator telling us Yuji hit a black flash to make it. There is always discourse on whether or not Yuji continuously hitting black flashes just amps his stats over and over again, but I don't see why that would be the case. If it was, Yuji would have freed Megumi way sooner, but clearly that didn't happen. I do think, however, that first black flash wasn't amped to his AP. The 3rd level of Yuji's power was Shrine, and this was directly acknowledged by Sukuna to be an actual threat. Before then, Sukuna didn't bother to avoid any of Yuji's attacks, once Yuji pulled this level out, he literally made it a point to not get hit. What Yuji did here was make a grinding bout to have Shrine only hit the boundary between Megumi and Sukuna, and this was working. It was so efficient. You saw Sukuna throwing up fingers as Yuji would attack him.
Wow.
And Sukuna started avoiding his attacks. So
Is
then
Itadori like that?
Domain expansion. People miss this for some reason, but the only thing we don't know about Yuji's domain is the name. The sure hit of the domain is the shrine attack I've been talking about. When Nobara hit Sukuna with resonance and Sukuna had Hollow Paper Basket dropped, the domain immediately hit Sukuna with dismantles. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this might have been just a physical thing because I don't think there's been an instance where someone could apply a body bow to the sure hit of the domain expansion, as in what it specifically targets on the victim. It's weird because the entire point of Yuji using his domain in the first place was because he couldn't touch Sukuna conventionally, so maybe there's a chance that Yuji's sure hit genuinely just attacks your soul, but you guys can let me know your thoughts in the comments. I've been gassing Yuji's soul shrine, but his regular shrine isn't all bad. He had to make direct contact with the pillars of Wicked, aka Cleave, and after that he gave Sukuna a paper cut with the same attack. Yuji also has blood manipulation, and people don't talk about this enough, but Yuji is a prodigy. He used Supernova against Sukuna, something that wasn't taught to him, and the AP of it was decent as well. It ripped Sukuna's face open. He also has piercing blood, and that also damaged Sukuna when he used it in his face at point blank range.
Interesting.
Yuji's speed was a weird case when I went over it back in my YouTube vs. Yuji video, so let's get into it right now. In chapter 246, Sukuna sends slashes at everyone after he comes out of Hikaru's domain expansion. I'll get into that in a second, but after that, Sukuna looks at the team and tells them he wants to test their speed needs. And so he literally runs away. We of course get Sukuna's little fight with Hikaru, but it's what he says after that that's of importance. He looks at Yuji, who's now a user of Hikaru, and starts thinking in his head. This means there's no reason to lie about it. And Sukuna goes on to say, looks like his ability to use Curse Energy to strengthen his body isn't the only thing that's improved. There's only two things Sukuna tested Yuji on, his durability and his speed. And so he just flat out says his speed hasn't improved. Now, I used to think this was some kind of inconsistency, but then I realized what Yuji pre-time skip was doing. In chapter 212, Sukuna took over Megumi's body, and in the very next chapter, he sent him flying through multiple buildings. Sukuna then survived an encounter with Jacob's ladder and threw Angel off a building, something that Yuji witnessed with his own eyes. This is where Yuji just snapped and had a sudden power boost that shook Sukuna, and Urame even noticed it later on. Of course, with this power boost came speed, and I think this is what Sukuna was basing it on. His new speed literally allowed him to keep up with Sukuna and Maki's fight. This is why during the arc, Yuji's able to hang with Yuta in his domain, because he's actually that fast, and became that fast during his fight with Sukuna. Now, just like with strength, there's of course discourse on whether or not Yuji got faster after he awakened with Black Flash. I personally don't think that's the case. There wasn't a single time during the entire Shinjuku arc that Yuji had a speed advantage on Sukuna. No matter what level Sukuna was trying, when he felt like it, he started avoiding Yuji's attacks like it was nothing, so I don't really see it. Durability and endurance is something that is just verbatim stated to have improved after the time skip. I of course read it out to you guys already, but let's go over some feats. The entire raid, Sukuna was throwing attack after attack at Yuji. It was stated by Kusakabe that there's 3 attacks that needed to be avoided at all costs. A cleave, a dismantle at point blank range, and a bro cutting slash. Yuji got hit with a cleave in literally the next chapter, and yeah, to be honest, Yuji got cooked. This isn't an anti-feat because cleave is literally durability adjustment. It's actually kind of a feat because Yuji had the endurance to take the attack and heal up with RCT. I just want to point this out, but this is indirectly confirmation that Hikari can survive Sukuna's domain expansion. If I speak, I'm in big trouble. You know what? In fact, we actually see it firsthand. Yuji's simple domain gets deleted by Sukuna's domain that was stated to not have lost any output or range, and Yuji directly survives the onslaught with just RCT and endurance. His leg got cut off, but he fixed it with blood manipulation and reverse cursing. In Yuta's domain, we get a measuring stick for Yuji's domain.
Interesting.
Sukuna compares it directly to Ryuichi Glory, and a measuring stick for Yuji's endurance is just the entire series glazing him on his pain tolerance. If it's just pain, Yuji's Glory won't stop. By the end of the fight, he's literally said to have reached his limit after popping his domain expansion, but he's still able to fight head on with Sukuna, landing diversion fist and hitting a black flash. Finally is hacks, and I've basically gone over everything while talking about the other stats. Yuji has reverse curse technique and is boosted by his use of blood manipulation. We saw in Sukuna's domain his ability to reattach his limbs that are severed with blood, then healing it back into place. He also has Shrine, both clean and dismantle, of course. I've seen recent discourse about Yuji's potential to use Divine Flame, but let's be real, it'd probably be like using a lighter. Yuji's most dangerous ability, however, is his soul attacks. No, his attacks aren't limited to just weakening barriers between incarnated sorcerers. His ability is actually derived from his counter to Maito. He can directly attack your soul. He just decided in his fight with Sukuna to attack the barrier to extract it from Mega. And that's it for Yuji's skill. So let's get into his demonic teammate, Maki.
Okay, let's get to it.
Like I said earlier in the video, Maki for the majority of the series was mostly inferior to Yuji. We knew as early as the prequel of the series that she had a tougher body in exchange for political synergy and the inability to use jutsu. She eventually unlocked the full physical capabilities of her body and then the full realization of the heavy restriction, but I'll go over the perks that came with it later on. I want to know something right now so as to get it out of the way. This Maki, and this Maki are all of the same stats. I didn't think this before, but I gave the Sakura Jima Colony upgrade as well as saw some extra material, and I feel like that's just actually the case. The entire problem in Sakura Jima was the way Maki fought and the mindset she had. Before seeing Toji, she had a mental block, thinking about what she has and what she doesn't. And after seeing him, she reconsiders what she should discard and what she shouldn't. The sumo guy in this
My God, I got boogers.
sumo was to get around that. Maki just fights better afterwards. It's stated that in the Zenin massacre, Maki was just equal to Toji, so that's literally the situation with those two versions. As for post time skip, I don't think Maki got stronger because I think she peaked physically as soon as Mai sacrificed Black. She's fully realized now Mai's dialogue implied there was a limit. Maybe his own dialogue states there's a limit to development, and I think Maki hit that limit. The only thing different between these three Makis is skill and way of fighting, because even if she didn't get stronger after the time skip, I think it's safe to assume that she got more skill. With all that being said, let's get into our first stat. Strength. In the
I want y'all to leave some predictions and see who's gonna win the fight, Maki or Itadori. Cause I want to know. That's a good fight.
of this video, it's actually kind of funny that both of the fighters just bypass their ability. Maki with the soul spin katana is able to literally cut straight to the soul rather than going for conventional durability. But before we get into her feats with that, her actual strength feats definitely need to be talked about. She dominated the entire Zenin clan because back then the weapon she had did not have the durability negation she has now. She sliced through a supreme grade one like Ogi and one-shot Naoya with a punch, the strongest in the clan after Naobito's death. In Sakurajima, we don't actually see much, and this is especially true in the Shinjuku part because, of course, she has her durability negation. With it, we see Maki use it against Naoya and literally just straight up one-shot him. Against Sukuna, she gets a sneak attack on him to which Sukuna just jumps back and literally never gets hit with the katana again outside of sneak attacks. I can't believe this has to be said, but no, getting hit with the soul split katana isn't the end of the world. Sukuna's able to heal the soul damage he took from the blade by being able to receive a soul and use reverse cursing. Sukuna does say it's taking longer to heal in comparison to his other wounds, but also the narrator just flat out says he would have healed it easily had he been at full power. Next is speed, and during the Shinjuku arc, things got a little weird, so we'll get into that in a second. During the Zenin massacre, Maki was easily able to adapt to not only projection sorcery, but also Naoya's stack speed. A detail I recently noticed was the speed cone that Naoya created by going at top speed. The only other time we see a speed cone is Choso's piercing blood, and that's the indication of the speed of sound. So Naoya goes at this speed, turns around still at top speed, and Maki just casually reacts and counters him. This is consistent because when Naoya comes back in his cursed spirit form, blitzing her with Mach 3 speed, Maki flat out says Toji would have been able to handle the speedster, but Maki couldn't because of her mental block and fighting style. So when she got over speed was weird because of Shinjuku, that's because of Sukuna. Sukuna's stats vary so much during this arc. One minute he's fighting Gojo equally, and the other he's taking attacks from Kusakabe. Against Maki, we see probably the most insane variation ever. Sukuna starts off chapter 253 clashing with Maki evenly. Then in the span of 2 pages, he blitzes her into a building before she can even land. And then he goes back to a speed where Maki can push him into a wall in front of his face. And then he blitzes the crap out of her in the next page. It's safe to say that using the Sukuna fight as a measuring stick between the two won't be in play here. Maki's most impressive feat, in my opinion, is dodging roll cutting slash. For some reason, people think this isn't one, but that's a topic for a whole nother video, so just wait on that. Something I have to add is of course Toji's feats, because these two are complete egos. Now, the only thing I want to really bring up is the Megami statement, where he directly compares Toji's speed to Three Finger Sukuna. I don't think it's a valid statement, but it needs to be mentioned for this fight. Durability and endurance is next, and this is quite the odd topic considering Maki doesn't have any curse energy. Maki and Toji's durability feats are literally just straight body strength. Toji took a weekend rep. Of course, he started bleeding, but the attack did no lasting damage to him. As for Maki, we've actually seen the limits for him. Against Naoya, Maki of course gets hit with the Mach 3 ram and is actually taken out of the fight a little bit to recover. She does immediately try to attack Naoya, but she admits that she's gotta have some time. Against Sukuna, she got hit with the Black Flash and ghosted, but came back after a certain amount of time to slice up Sukuna's arm. She then takes another Black Flash as well as some slashes right after and literally never comes back into the fray. So yeah, we can see her limit. As for endurance, we see this showcase when she fought the entire Zenin clan with the lethal wound from Loki. It was actually mentioned that she was at a disadvantage against Naoya because of said wound. Maki kept fighting. I think he has somewhat of a pain tolerance just like Yuji. Finally is Hacks, and this is where I'll go over the heavy demonstration.
I got easy pause myself.
Here. Actually, never mind. Don't close my door.
He's got the physicals that equal Toji, but after becoming fully realized, Maki gained extra abilities. One of them is the ability to interact with the air. Against Naoya, she's able to just jump while she's falling and dodge Naoya in the process. We also see Sukuna and Maki clash using this power twice, because Sukuna also has the ability to do it. Maki also unlocked a type of precognition through reading air particles. This is what allowed her to predict Naoya coming her way so she could double jump. Maki was also granted the ability to perceive the soul, rendering the Soul Split Katana one of the most broken weapons in the series, something the average sorcerer definitely does not want to fight against. And finally, Maki has the ability to heal to a certain extent. When she got rammed by Naoya, she told Kama that she needed some time to heal, and also she most likely did that right after Sukuna's first Black Flash. With that said, we've skilled both fighters, so again, how would these two match up? Let's get into it right now.
Like I said, put your predictions. Yutadori or Maki.
No real reason for this. It's 12 a.m. while I'm writing this because I was procrastinating, and it's actually like 1 o'clock right now while I'm recording. Same rules as always. Whoever dies or gets knocked out first loses. So let's go and simulate the fight. Play the Budokai music. The fight starts and both characters know the other character's gimmick. I think this is pretty obvious considering they all discuss plans. That being said, Yuji doesn't directly have the counter into Soul Split Katana like Sukuna did. I do think that if Yuji saw Sukuna do the chainsaw thing he did against Yuji and Maki, he'd be able to replicate it, but there's just no proof that he saw that. That being said, we've already established that the two are pretty evenly matched when it comes to speed, so both characters can land hits on each other. Maki can land Soul Split Katana on Yuji, damaging his soul, and Yuji can land punches and dismantles on Maki, damaging her soul. It must be noted that the potency of Yuji's shrine will be amped because the target of the dismantles will be her but her soul directly. The outcome of this fight comes down to a couple questions. 1. How strong do you think the soul of a heavy administration user is? That Toji's body was just so strong it overpowered a guy's soul, so what about the reverse? 2. Do you think the damage Maki would do against Yuji would be more than Yuji than Maki?
1, I think it's just normal says heavily restriction is based off of the body future. Two, I think Itadori is going to win just because of the fact dismantle and RCT.
How long can Yuji outlast Maki?
And I'm gonna read the words it says. Can Yuji outlast Maki? Yes, because of RCT.
I genuinely don't even know how to answer that, and it's almost impossible to have a set-in-stone idea on how Yuji's soul damage would affect Maki. I think a good assumption is that since she may be special due to heavy restriction, the boost from Shrine can counteract that, and so the damage would be regular. Regular as in like Yuji versus Mind. For the second question, I do personally think Maki's soul damage may do a little bit more than Yuji's. I guess Naoya, she just outright one-shots him and directly damages Sukuna. Yuji, on the other hand, gave Mayuto the business for chapters on end, black flashes, and mirages. Mayuto still held up. In fact, he was at 40% before they even exited the building they were in. And the third question is a spoiler to what I think would actually happen in the fight, because Yuji has a counter to soul damage and Maki just doesn't. Yuji can use reverse cursing to heal his soul, while Maki can only hope to have a chance.
I said that.
So while they can hit each other mutually because of their similar speed, Yuji can whittle down Maki while recovering his own soul and eventually ending the fight having outdone her damage. Yuji wins the fight, and it all came down to circumstance. What did y'all think about this fight? If I'm being completely real, I was confused going into it because I genuinely had no idea who I had winning. Anyways, definitely let me know you guys think.
I'll leave him a like. But yeah, like I said, I knew Itadori gonna win just because of the fact he could use RCT and she can't. And just off of that fact, yeah, I had him winning just off of the fact he can use RCT. And like he said, he could keep repairing his soul every time he gets slashed. So, but hey, if you like the video, I want you to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the family. I love you. I always will. Stay safe in this world. There's a lot of weirdos out here. Peace.
Say what? Bassy action. How about 2 Glock? You know, both of them a J5. You know, all my hearts get spent. I bounce